Hey everybody, I'm going to do a review on the Valor Fitness BD-61 cable crossover machine. I've had this for a few weeks now, have had some time to mess around with it and figure out what the upsides are, what the downsides are. I will tell you overall, I do like it. Right off the bat, I will also say one of the things that I don't like about it is that I'm just a little bit too freaking tall to really get full benefits out of using this thing. So I really think that it would be great of Valor Fitness if they would supply a variety of height differences in this machine. What is this? I think this is right around 7 foot high, or like a few inches short of that anyways. It would be great if it was, about another foot taller. I have plenty of room between the top of this and the ceiling, so another foot higher would have been great. Basically, like right now I've got the rope on here. If I were to do tricep extensions, or tricep pull downs rather, on this, I would actually be better off getting on my knees to do it than standing, only because at that very top part it doesn't go up high enough to keep the tension on. Basically at some point I end up losing tension as I come up. Now of course the real place where you want the tension is down, but nonetheless, if I get on my knees to do that, it just makes me happier because I've got tension all the way from start to finish in the exercise. And it's not the only exercise that I have to do that sort of thing to adapt to the lack of height in the machine. So let's see. Where do I want to start? Okay, so let's start with this. Alright, so this box right here is one of the 3 boxes that this machine came in, and as you can see, very torn up. It came that way. That wasn't after the fact, after I unpacked it and did all that. It came that busted up. I'm going to grab another one of the boxes here. Here is the other box, and once again you can see very heavily torn up. Very poor job packaging this machine by the company. Very poor. It ended up, and that was by the case, all 3 boxes looking like that. I'm not going to waste my time grabbing the 3rd box, but I will show you the reason why those are so busted up is because of the packaging. This little, like, 1/4 inch thick bubble wrap is all they wrapped each individual one of these steel bars with, and that's just not enough. Most heavy duty equipment, when they come in a box, they have the white styrofoam that is basically molded and shaped to fit the part in there so that the part does not budge, doesn't move, doesn't get, poked out of the outside of the box. Basically, all that lack of proper packaging caused this thing to come shipped to me, and all these little brackets were all the little deals for the track are basically almost every single one of them was bent, and that really sucked because I had to, and there's a sticker on one of the boxes that says, hey, did you get a damaged box when it was shipped to you? Please take a picture and send it to this website email address, and we'll get anything that is missing or broken replaced. And so I will give credit to the spare parts department. they did a really good job. I explained to them and showed them the pictures of the busted up boxes and the fact that it resulted in the bent up brackets on a number of these parts, and I got brand new ones that were very nice and straight. The guy that I spoke to directly actually took the time and very securely packaged the replacement parts. The replacement parts were much better packaged and protected than the original. So eventually that got taken care of. It still would have been great if they would have just packaged the product the right way to begin with, so that didn't have to happen, because once I got it, I still had to wait another almost full week before I could actually put this thing together and use it. So nobody really wants that. Alright, now I did happen to watch a couple of different reviews from other guys about this machine, and the one common thing that they all complained about was that when they are performing a lift, that the weight stack back there does not glide smoothly up and down the bar. And one guy mentioned that he called or emailed the company and said, hey, is there something that I can put on this to allow less friction and allow a smoother workout? And I don't think he mentioned what was recommended to him, but I will tell you this. I actually figured out what caused the friction, because when I first put this thing together, I did not have any friction. It was very smooth, and I thought, I wonder what this guy's talking about, what he was complaining about. Well, it turns out that the third cable that you put on this machine as you put it together, essentially the final step in building this machine, the third cable is the tension cable. And when it's really nice and loose and at a proper tension, there is no friction on the weight stack as you are performing a exercise. So hey, big huge plus right there, right? Now, the downside to that is that when it is the tension cable, which once again, you adjust this to however loose or however tight you need it to be, all right? You have to play with it to figure it out. The downside is the more loose you have it, yes, you're not gonna have any tension on that weight stack in the back of the machine as you're performing an exercise. However, at this point, I'm going to grab the camera so I can show you something here. Now, when you move your deal down to the very bottom here, okay, this is the adjustable cable. This is the tension cable that I was just talking about, all right? Goes from this one on this side all the way through the machine, not in that particular direction, but it goes from that one to that one, basically going through that maze of pulleys, okay? Now, when this tension cable is too loose, then it basically renders this bottom position for this useless, because this bolt will rub up against that and not allow you to tighten it into place. So you have to find that happy place where you've got enough tension on your tension cable to, you know, make your exercises go smooth, but not put any friction on your weight stack back there, and at the same time allow you to use that bottom location. So too loose, you can't use it. Too tight, and then you end up with too much friction on that. Okay? So going back to the fact that the other videos of guys doing a review on this machine mentioned, or one of the guys anyways, mentioned that he called and or emailed and asked, hey, you know, what can I use to take the friction off of that? I think one or both of the guys mentioned that they used WD-40 on this. Guys, don't ever use WD-40 to clean up anything, because yes, it will clean something up very quickly. At first, it will seem like it was the greatest thing that you could have possibly done to it, whether it be this machine here for lifting weights or a car part, any of that kind of stuff. But ultimately, in the end, WD-40 will just attract dirt and dust, and you will be right back to square one. So the guy, I know for sure one of those two videos, the guy mentioned he used WD-40. If both of them said if they both used WD-40, they basically just made their problems worse, not better, okay? So on that note, the thing you should be using is silicone, if anything. Once again, it's really a matter of making sure that that tension cable on here is just in a happy little place where it's not too tight and it's not too loose to where you can't use that bottom position. Very simple. But if you so choose to use something to help lube that weight stack, use silicone, guys. You can use this particular bottle. This is engine silicone. Okay, this works just fine because it's, you know, meant for metal parts to metal parts and keep things gliding and running smoothly. That works great. It just so happens that I recently got a brand new garage door and got this nice silicone lubricant for my garage that I'm supposed to use once a year. So you have options. But keep in mind, like I said, the best way to solve the problem, just make sure that the tension cable is not too tight. That's all you have to do. You just have to play with it, guys. That's it. Now, moving on, I'm going to set this camera back into place. Bear with me for a moment while I reset this thing. Okay, so one of the guys on the two videos that I watched of reviews griped that when you don't have any weight on the weight stack back there and you pull these cables out, guess what? It doesn't retract. Dude, think about what you're doing. Use very basic science. Think of this machine like one of those old-fashioned kitchen weight scales, you know, the balance scales where you had something in one side that you knew the weight of, and then you put something on the other side of the scale to see if it's the same weight or if it's too heavy, and if it goes down here or if it goes like this, or if it's in the middle and it's happy and it's equal weight, right? Now, you gotta keep in mind, you gotta realize that this rope attachment, it weighs something, right? That weight stack, even though there's no weights on it, that still weighs something as well, okay? So, you treat this thing like a old-fashioned kitchen balancing scale, alright? Now, I will take this rope extension off of here, and I will take and put one of my heavier attachments on in its place real quick, and just watch what happens here. I put that sucker on there, and it is just going to slowly but surely lower on its own. And that is because this is much, much heavier than that. Very simple concept. I don't know why he's complaining about it, because at the end of the day, what does it matter what this machine does when there is no weight on there? It matters what the machine does and how the machine performs when the weight is on there. That's the important part. So if you happen to come across that video, just ignore it. The guy wasn't thinking about what he was doing. Let's see here. Oh, the other thing. So I mentioned earlier that when you don't have the tension cable tight enough, then it renders that very bottom position of the adjustable deal there, it basically renders it useless because you can't even lock it into place. Well, this top location here, although it doesn't have the exact same problem because that tension screw is, well out of the way of things, it still has a bit of a problem. And so basically when I've got this thing pushed all the way to the outside position, you can see that there is space between this and that. Now, when I move it inward, on the other hand, it is rubbing right up against the other. So this one is touching that one. And that causes a problem because guess what? That causes friction. So on the very top position, it's still usable depending on where you have it. Okay, and that goes for both sides. All right, of course I've got this one adjusted way down there to show you the point that I made earlier on that one. But it's nonetheless, if I had this side moved up to that top position right there, it'd be the same scenario. I can't bring them all the way in and let's say do chest flies from the high position to the low position. So that is a flaw, okay? And that really sucks, especially because once again, I'm a pretty tall guy. I'm just right at 6 foot. I guess nowadays I'm more or less considered average, whereas back in the day I was a giant. Not so much anymore. But nonetheless, you get the idea. It's already because of the lack of height in the machine. I have limitations to how I can use it, and then to top it off, to add further insult to injury, the very top position isn't fully usable because you don't have a full range of motion in this without coming across the problem of rubbing into each other and causing friction. So that sucks. And I'll just show you real quick on this bottom one here. You've got a really, really good range of motion. That sucker can turn all the way inside towards the inside of the machine. That side is great, and it's the same way as you work your way all the way up the stack to each adjustment point. It has a great range of motion all the way up until, once again, you get to that top position and start rubbing into that, and then you have problems and limitations. Now, on that point, another thing I want to mention that kind of sucks about this, one guy that did a review, basically complained about the fact that these adjustable points aren't like numbered or labeled in some way. I mean, dude, come on, just I've been in a million gyms, and there is not a single cable crossover machine out there that has them labeled or numbered. You just take the time and go 1, 2, 3, go over to the other side, go 1, 2, 3, boom, boom. That's not really an issue. He's just, in my opinion, complaining to complain. Now, I will say this though. Here is a very legitimate complaint, because this is the only cable crossover machine where you actually have to tighten and loosen this. I've got this. Oh, there we go. All right, so just like a bolt or a screw, I have to sit there and turn it and loosen it, and once it's loose, then I pop that sucker out, and then I move it down to another one of the adjustment points, and then I have to screw it back in. This is the only cable crossover machine that I've ever seen that you have to do that. All other cable crossover machines have that nice little safety pin style deal that just pops right out and then pops right back in when it gets to a adjustment point, and it does it on its own, and it's perfectly safe and handles business the way it should. It's not too big of a deal that you have to sit there and do that, but the problem I have with it is that when you're a guy or a girl that's using this machine and you like to do your exercises with as little of rest as possible, that makes it hard to do that, because you have to spend so much time unscrewing it all the way and then moving it and screwing it all the way back in to make sure that it's locked in nice and tight and safe before you go and use it. So it's a lot of time wasted. So it sucks, but it's one of those things I guess you can live with. It just makes a workout longer than it needs to be, and therefore, in all honesty, the longer a workout is, basically the effective effective it's going to be, because the more you're resting between sets, the less this next set counts. Let's see. What's something else that I want to point out with this machine here? Okay, so on the top of the machine, you have yet another little cable pulley, and this is for your lat pull downs. Has kind of a nice little storage spot right there for when you're not using it, so that it's out of the way, so that's nice. Same thing down here. It has another additional cable pulley, and this is for doing seated rows, which basically the company, they put that across as being a selling point because it's got that much more equipment and that much more range of use. Reality of it is this particular pulley for the seated rows and that particular pulley for the lat pull downs, completely unnecessary, because all you really have to do, if you know what you're doing, is put that, one of the side pulleys, the two main pulleys, you can put it at the top position and do a lat pull down from that, or you can put it all the way down at the bottom location and do just exactly what that pulley is there for, which is to do a seated row. So in all honesty, that's kind of money wasted, and look, we've got, these extra fancy accessories. Well, if you know what you're doing, then you realize that those extra accessories are actually pointless, because all you have to do, once again, adjust it. one spot or the other. Boom, done. But at the end of the day, that's not really a big deal. The only thing is who knows, maybe that causes this machine to cost an extra 100, 150, 200 bucks that it didn't necessarily need to cost. So that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else at the moment. Other than, the little hooks for all your accessories on this thing, I think they could have been better placed. Maybe have an extra bar on the back of the machine somewhere back there to have those hooks on it. Basically because where it's at when you hang accessories on this thing, depending on the accessory, depending how it wants to hang off of that hook, it can kind of, rub up against the cable right here. I'm trying to get this thing, there we go. Yeah, so you can see the cable inside of there, and it's just kind of, surrounded by all of my accessory attachments. And I've actually just gotten to the point where I only actually put these accessories on there for the purpose of the video, just to show that when I'm actually using this thing, I don't have any of those attachments sitting on there, because they will get in the way of that cable and cause some friction if they are hanging in a certain way. Other than that, like I said, overall a very good product. You just kind of have to be as smart or smarter than the machine to figure out things like the tension on the weight stack and all the other detailed issues that I went over. You just have to be smarter than it, and you have to think about what you're doing and work your way around a problem and solve it. That's really all it is. So the only real major super downside is, man, they should make this thing taller, because in some houses, in older houses, this might be like rubbing up against the ceiling, but this is a standard 8-foot high ceiling, and as you can see, I've got room for it. And given that I'm 6 foot tall, that extra room would have come in handy and would have been very, very nice to have. So having an option of a taller one versus this one, that would have been nice. Other than that, you guys have a good day. Let me know what you think.